Good evening, everyone. It's Dr. McCoy, and we are ready to gather for our weekly gathering. We gather on Thursdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I'm so glad that you're able to be here. If you're joining a little later, if it's after Thursday, that's okay. Want to welcome you on the conference call line. I want to welcome you on Facebook and on YouTube. Thank you so much to all of the new YouTube subscribers. I appreciate you. I can see when you join. So welcome to this space. Maybe you've been following for a while and you decided to subscribe to my YouTube channel. So thank you so much for doing that. And we are going to continue to walk through the book of Luke. I just wanted to, for the next 4 weeks, I really want to take a 4-week journey to healing racialized trauma. A 4-week journey to healing racialized trauma. And I see you all saying good evening. Hello there. Greetings to you. Good evening. So I've said before that in my ministry, my vision is to respond to need. I tried not to just come up with something that I just wanted to do, but really focus on what do people need as I listen and I travel and I listen to what people say and even what people say in spaces that I serve on a regular basis. One of the things that I hear is that people are really hurting and in need of healing. And so my ministry is really threefold. I've said this before. My ministry's vision is impacting lives, healing hearts, and growing faith. So on last week, I focused on the healing hearts portion of that when I asked you if you had any ideas on what makes a Christian unsalted. I want you to share with me because maybe you had experienced that and someone did email me. So last week, if you were with me or if you go back and you review that video, I was really responding to an email that one of you sent me. So I thank you so much for that. And I want to be sure that I continue to do that. So if you don't have my email address, let me make sure you have it. It's drtalikamccoy@gmail.com. drtalikamccoy@gmail.com. So as I continue to focus on healing hearts, you may have questions or comments or concerns. You can always reach out to me. So for the next 4 weeks, I'm going to focus on racialized trauma, which is a type of healing that needs to happen. When we think about trauma, really as it pertains to race, there is a type of healing that needs to happen. So I'll tell you that as a seminary professor of practical ministry, I teach at Shaw University Divinity School in Raleigh, North Carolina. One of my courses is a theological response to trauma. A theological response to trauma. Now, in my courses, I have people who are senior pastors. I have people who aspire to be pastors in local church. But then I also have community workers. I have people who are parents, people who are grandparents. I have people who work in schools. It's just people from all walks of life because at Shaw University Divinity School, we are not only focused on people who want to be pastors in local churches. So if you want to learn more about that, then just let me, just reach out to me and I'll tell you, we're doing a lot of innovative things. And so I teach that course, A Theological Response to Trauma at Shaw University Divinity School. So when selecting books, I created the course, I needed to create assignments and I needed to select books for my students. And so I selected books because I want them to be well-rounded in their approach to trauma, especially if they're going to serve or if they are serving faith communities. Because sometimes in faith communities, we miss the human body experience. Let me say that again. Sometimes in faith communities, we miss the human body experience element of trauma in our churches. We really do. We rush to the spiritual, and so because we rush to the spiritual, we don't embrace the fact that people are having a flesh experience. People are having a flesh experience, not just a spiritual one. So then that means the church leaders, especially the future senior pastors, need to have this type of education to be competent, to competently lead today's church. So then, here I am, teaching that course. And one of the books that I chose for that course, I want to share with us for the next 4 weeks. And I hope that it will be helpful to Americans everywhere, because we have an issue with racialized trauma. So one of the books that I chose for my students is entitled My Grandmother's Hands. This book is by Mr. Resma Menakem, and I think one of my bookmarks just fell out. I have so many bookmarks. I hope the one that I need for this evening did not fall out. It probably did. I think it did, but I'll find it. But this book is My Grandmother's Hands, Racialized Trauma and the Pathway to Mending Our Hearts and Bodies. That's what this book is about. And this is really a book of healing. So for the next 4 weeks, I want to share with you what I hope my students gained in one of my classes. Now, this is only one of the books, and as you can see, it's pretty thick, so I don't know if they were able to get through the entire book in the semester, just as we're not going to get through it in 4 weeks. But I want you to understand that the author of this book, Mr. Resma Menakem, he is a healer. He is not only a healer, but he is a trauma therapist. And if you Google him, you just need to listen to this brilliant man. You need to listen to his approach to racialized trauma and how trauma happens in our bodies. And it's not just something cognitive like a lot of folks teach. He is just brilliant. And so he's a trauma therapist. Understand, he's not a philosopher. He's not a literary stylist. His focus is really on healing and mending and the psyche. His focus is on souls, bodies, relationships, and whenever possible, families. And also not just families, but neighborhoods and communities. So he offers the necessary new insights that people need to do healing work. So you see the word heal behind me. When I'm talking to you about healing, I want you to understand that I am not just talking about healing from this wonderful book that Christians read called the Holy Bible. I do that, and you know that that's part of the growing faith element of my vision of my ministry. Remember, impacting lives, healing hearts, and growing faith. So when you come to my Bible studies, you know that that's part of growing faith, and that's awesome. And this book, of course, is a handbook for life for Christians. The only problem is that sometimes we miss in this Christian experience, like I said earlier, that we're in fleshly bodies. And so because of that, people leave our faith communities and they're still hurt, and healing is not happening because we don't address the entire person. So this book in particular, along with others that I try to share with us, and I even share them in my sermons, hoping that people will go and, take their heads out of this book enough to look at books like these, so that they will receive the full type of healing that God has to offer to us through therapists and through people, in faith communities as well. And of course, people in hospitals, your medical doctors, but you need all of those people to help you to be well-rounded. Okay. So he offers these insights for guiding America really in growing up and out of white supremacy. Now, I know that we've heard white supremacy. We've heard that, a lot. But when he talks about white supremacy, now listen to this. When Mr. Resma Menakem talks about white supremacy, he says that the term would serve us better if we would really name it as white body supremacy. White body supremacy. So I'm going to get to that. But when we think about white supremacy, it's one of those things that we have to think beyond just what we've been taught. Because white supremacy, as he says, it lives in our bodies. Every white-skinned body benefits from white supremacy. Let me say that again. Every white-skinned body benefits. And if I keep doing something weird, it's because I had my teeth cleaned today. And you know how it is when you have your teeth cleaned. Sometimes, some of those instruments get under your gums. So if you see me a little bit weird, it's because I have spots in my mouth where I'm like, oh my goodness, it's a little bit inflamed, but I'm okay. But I just want you to know that I'm not eating anything, I'm not like being too weird, but that's what it is, okay? Because I'm having a fleshly experience. So, hey, there you go. Even in this moment, I'm flesh. So I'm so grateful for books like these because it reminds me of the reality that, that my flesh is at work all the time. So when we think about white supremacy, another way to think about it is from his view that white supremacy lives in our bodies because every white-skinned body benefits from white supremacy. Let me give you an example. On yesterday, I had a great opportunity to serve a church called Good Shepherd Lutheran Church. And a lot of what I'm sharing with you now, I shared with that group of people. And in that room were all white bodies. I was the only non-white body in that space. And so what I attempted to do, and I hope I did it in an effective way, I've received an email, so I guess I did because, they were like, kudos, thank you. But one of the things that I tried to express to them was this idea that don't only think of like white supremacy, but think about white bodies. And I told them that their white body versus my non-white body experiences America in a very different way. I told them that the non-white body has to be sure that it tries to control itself, for example, when it's followed in stores because it's a non-white body. That's white supremacy, and we see it in our bodies. The black body, for example, is told when you're pulled over, make sure your hands are where the police officers can see you, black body. When you're in a certain neighborhood, what are you doing in this neighborhood? Black body. So this is why, this is an example of what I was expressing to them on yesterday, is that when we think about Mr. Resmaa Menakem's approach, and he says white body supremacy, he's talking about what happens in our bodies and what happens with our bodies. So I told them, you experience America in a different way because of white body supremacy. So the book is really written for every American of any background, any skin color, who sees this idea of white supremacy, one of those things that needs to be changed, and really sees that when we allow racialized trauma to wound American bodies, if we continue to do that, then that's going to create more genocide, and it's going to create more brutality, and it's going to really be America's death warrant. So what he wants to do is to teach us about what's happening in our bodies, okay? So I'm going to be doing that with us for the next 4 weeks. So we're going to do some practices. There's going to be some practices for you and for myself. So for us to really think about what's happening with our bodies, because we experience white supremacy. It lives in our bodies, okay? So when he talks about, again, white body supremacy, every white body really, no matter what that white body thinks, no matter what that white body feels, no matter what that white body does, that white body automatically benefits from white supremacy. So some Americans, when we think, some of us, we Americans, we have to start beginning that, we have to begin that healing. This long-held trauma around race. Our very bodies have been traumatized. Let me give you an example. As a black body traumatized by white body supremacy, I looked at my non-white skin at one point in my life, and I started buying fade cream. See? There's something happening with my body because of white body supremacy. Because in America, the white body is the standard. The white body is the standard. This is why, as a black body, knowing that my hair grew kinky out of my head, white body supremacy says, no, your hair is supposed to be straight. So then I chemically treated my hair because of white bodies, because that's how white bodies looked. Again, I go back to the skin tone. I was trying to fade light into my skin because of white body supremacy. It's not until, recent years that now there are people who are starting to get their bodies to look like non-white bodies because there is an awakening. Now white bodies are filling their lips so that they can be, more filled, puff, just luscious like a non-white body or a black body. Now there are bodies that are trying to be more shapely, with the behind, if you will, right? Because that white body supremacy is subsiding in a lot of ways. But their trauma held in non-white bodies, and we can see that in our responses to changing the non-white bodies to be the standard, okay? So white body supremacy lives in our bodies. It lives in the white body to say, I am the standard. That's why in the book that I shared with the group on yesterday, Waking Up White by Debbie Irving, I was telling them and helping them to see how whiteness is the norm in America, and everybody knows it and sees it, even if they're not immediately aware of it. So even as I've named some of those things, you may have an awakening in this moment to say, I never thought about it like that. Well, you've never thought about it like that because supremacy has taught you, white supremacy has taught you what the norm is. So this is why black women say things like, I'm going to go natural. So let's say that they were born little girls and their hair was the way that it naturally grew out of their heads. And then they changed it, and they straightened it, for example. And now they're saying, well, I'm going to go natural. No, you're going back to what you were when you were born. And however you choose to wear your hair is how you choose to use it. But I'm saying, just in saying that, I'm going to go natural. You were already natural when you were born, like everybody is. That's just naturally what, but because of white body supremacy, you think you're going back to something where what you really did was you went on and did, what the majority in America did. You see? So again, this is not about shame or anything like that. It's about understanding our bodies and white body supremacy. So the invention of whiteness really needs to be discussed in the first place. Because as I told the group yesterday, if God were to look on us as God did Adam and Eve, when God said to them, who told you you were naked? Right now, God would look on humanity, America in particular, and say, who told you you were white? Who told you you were black? Who told you? Who told? I didn't tell you that. Who told you that? So now white people have to ask themselves, why did you create whiteness? Why did you create whiteness? Whiteness is an invention. Why was that created in the first place? Not only that, but white people would also have to ask themselves, why, as a group, historically is what I'm talking about. If we're going to talk about this white supremacy, why was that N-word person created? Because again, that's an invention. When you think about that N-word that people were called during the days of enslavement, the slave owner created a N-word. So in order to start really dealing with this, we have to ask Americans, why did you create whiteness and blackness and all that? Why did you create race? Because it's a social construct. And why did you create, for example, that derogatory figure that does not exist? If you have ever watched I Am Not Your Negro by James Baldwin, he says that. He raised that question. He says to the white interviewer, white people have to come to terms with reckoning with, why did you create he says, because I'm a black man, I'm not so why did you feel the need for one of those? So these are the types of conversations. If we're going to get to healing, understanding that healing can hurt, it can hurt before it feels good. Okay. And when we start talking about racial reconciliation, these are the types of things that we have to reckon with. Where did it come from? Historically, America. If we're going to do the work, we have to do it together, regardless of the tone of our skin. And then talk about why does it still exist? Why is that on the job application to begin with? That's where we start, okay? Because that's causing anxiety and hurt in our bodies, okay? So what Respomenikim believes, when thinking about this book, if you're just joining, much of what I'm talking about, of course, is coming from this book, and it will for the next 4 weeks. But he believes whiteness can evolve. Whiteness can evolve from race to culture and then to community. But it takes all of us for whiteness to evolve. So then when thinking about white supremacy, understanding it, it does not refer, and this is what I was sharing with the group on yesterday, it does not refer to individual white people per se. Okay, when thinking about white supremacy, it does not refer to individual white people per se and individual intentions, but to a political, economic, social system of domination. So the group as a whole is what we're talking about. Benefits politically and economically because they have a white body. So when we start talking about racism, we're talking about a power that a particular group has because substantially they have the power economically and they have the power politically. So this is why you hear people say that non-white people cannot be racist. Because in order to be racist, you have to have a certain power to enact actual racism. People can be prejudiced all day long. And prejudice is not always good either, right? That's not necessarily good. But I'm saying there's a difference in the terminology because racism has attached with it this inaction, this ability to put power behind it because you have the resources to do that. You can oppress. Where prejudice is about dislike, and prejudice can make a person hostile, make them not very nice. They can perhaps do unjust things, but they don't have the resources by which to oppress an entire group because this group is supreme. So when you hear people say that, well, black people can't be racist, that's where that comes from, okay? Because we're not talking about individuals per se. We're talking about, again, a group that has this power politically and this power economically. It was not just non-white people that got Obama in office. That was white folks. Remember now, the majority in America are white folks. So that's why when people said black folks got Obama in office, no, let's not forget our white brothers and sisters. And this is why we need you. If you're watching me right now, white people, this is why we need you to get on board with what I'm talking about right now. Because the system is based on this historic and current accumulation of structural power. Okay, that privileges and centralizes and elevates white people as a group. Let me give you another example. Privileged white person, centralizing the white person. I was in a particular group of people, and these two gentlemen came to talk to us about the prison system. They were both in really nice suits. One was black and the other was white. When they went up there, I could hear people saying, oh man, I wonder how much time that black guy did. Immediately assuming that the black body was the one that was the former incarcerated person. When they started to talk, it was discovered that it was actually the white guy who had been in prison and the black guy actually worked at the prison. So that's what I'm saying. Because of this system based on this historic and current accumulation, this structure of power, our bodies automatically respond to the white body in a positive way and the non-white body in a negative way. Now, I'm not saying that's you. I'm talking about collectively. We have a problem collectively. We're not just talking about you. We're talking about America. We're talking about us, humans, all of us, okay? Because it takes all of us to be responsible for what I'm talking about. So when we think about aspects of white supremacy, one of the things that he talks about in this book, an aspect of white supremacy, this book, My Grandmother's Hands, I'm speaking heavily from this book on this evening and for the next 4 weeks. And hopefully it's going to even help faith communities, to understand these things as well. But seeing whites as the norm, that's an aspect. And I talked about that already. Seeing them as the norm or the standard for humanity, and people of color as a deviation, so again, the white people are the norm, and people of color are a deviation. What do you mean, Dr. McCoy? Well, that's why we hear people say the black actress. Why can't they just be the actress? The black dentist. Why can't they just be a dentist? The Hispanic teacher. Why can't they just be a teacher? The reason why we do that, you all, is because white supremacy has taught us that whites are the norm. So if you're going to describe a person, you already know the normal person. That's a white body. So now you have to start saying the black one. See that? So that's an aspect of white supremacy. So when you're doing that, it's because your body has been influenced by the dominant culture, if you will, in America, which is white. So it's part of the operating system and organizing structure of American culture. So then that's why this is not a time for you to feel guilty and to feel, blamed or anything like that. This is who we are as America. And we have to ask ourselves, is this who we want to be? And it has to start with the individual. So it's not about getting upset. It's about getting prepared to do the work on you, regardless of the tone of your skin, so that we can grow together. So then when we think about how white supremacy, how the supremacy system works, the cultural operating system of white body supremacy influences and it determines many of the things that we do, the decisions that we make. Remember what I said about just hair? I'm just being transparent about me. I can't tell your story, but I can be honest about me. That operating system of white body supremacy, it influenced the decision that I made on how to wear my hair. Will I get the job if I don't look like a white body? I'm talking about me. The options that I select. I have to ask myself, how has white body supremacy influenced this system, influenced the options that I select? Yeah, I'm black, but I'm not going to go to a historical black college or university. I'm not going to do that because white body supremacy in America has influenced me to say if I go to a black school, I won't be looked at, in the same way. I won't be considered in the same way. I think that black bodies who choose to go to black institutions are some of the most courageous, bold, and brave people walking in America because of the things that I'm talking about. They may not even realize it, but the fact that by the time you get to the college level, you decide that you're going to take your black body to a black institution, an HBCU. Wow. You have been trained in America to make the other choice. You may not realize that, but thank God for maybe your family or somebody who helped you. But congratulations to you. Because again, the cultural operating system of white body supremacy influences or determines that you won't make that choice. No, because white folks' ice is colder. That's the culture. So again, when you see these things saying, do it for the culture or it's for the culture, I hope I'm helping you to understand why that's said. Because American culture influences the choices that are even open to you. Oh, you're black. If you wanted to go to a PWI, a predominantly white institution, you couldn't do it anyway. They don't want white bodies over there. When the fact of the matter is, there are PWIs who want black bodies over there. I have been invited into spaces because they wanted a black body there and not because it was a token experience. They didn't do it for a photo op. They wanted my black body there because they knew that my black body could help them get somewhere that they'll never get without a black body. I know that, but it's good that they know it. So I've been welcomed into spaces because people who maybe don't even get it, they want to, and they're like, Dr. McCoy will help me. And Dr. McCoy is not going to sugarcoat it. Dr. McCoy, and this is what I say in my ministry, if you've read, some things, what I say is I'm going to be transparent and do no harm. Be transparent and do no harm. And we need more of that in America. That's why we can't have these race conversations, because we don't know how to facilitate the conversation. So this operating system, it affects all of us regardless of hue, regardless of our skin color. Now, let me say that white people who go to historical black colleges and universities, because we have them on the campus of Shaw University. Look at that. So there are people doing this work regardless of the hue of their skin. So he has, Mr. Resla Menakem has something here in this book that I want to give you an example of this idea of our bodies, our country. Our bodies, our country. And I hope I did not, I think that's where my bookmark fell out. Thank you all for staying with me. I see you there. I see you. Secret Place Studio, you explained this all so well. Well, I thank you for that comment, for that that is very encouraging, because I'm not going to stop talking about it. I just want to make sure I talk about it in a way where people will hear me and not just immediately take offense, or me, you're going to feel some pain, and that's fine. That's going to happen. But healing involves pain. Okay. So thank you for that. And I know that you are a white woman. I'm just going to say that. And I appreciate you, for being here and for joining in this work that, regardless again of skin color, we all need to do. So I appreciate you. I do. I appreciate you. So let me read this. So, let me see. When he talks about this example of our bodies, okay? Talking about how white supremacy is prevalent even if we don't realize it. Everyday supremacy. Let me give you an example. I've given you my examples, and I'm sure you have yours, but listen to this. He says, my wife, Maria, purchased some household items at Walmart and was pushing her cart toward the exit. A Walmart employee stopped her, asked to see her sales receipt, and checked the items on the receipt against items in her cart. Maria was thirsty. So instead of leaving the store, she bought a soft drink and sat down on a bench near the exit. Now we're talking about everyday supremacy. So she's sitting there drinking the soda. So over the next 2 to 3 minutes, she watched as about 20 people left the store. The employee stopped to double check the receipts of all 8 of the black customers who walked past and none of the non-black ones. Understandably, my wife was not happy about this, and she told the store manager about it. The manager, who was white, was flabbergasted. He immediately called over the employee, who was also white, and confronted her. She was surprised. She was apologetic and a bit mortified. She insisted that she was not deliberately targeting black customers, but only checking people randomly. My wife told me she seemed completely sincere. I believe that's what she genuinely thought she was doing. The employee was not targeting black customers deliberately. She was targeting them unconsciously and reflexively. But the pain that such actions create for black Americans is felt quite consciously. So that's just an example of everyday supremacy. So for most Americans, including most of us, with dark skin, white supremacy has become part of our bodies. I can tell you that when I was presenting to a room full of white people on yesterday, this was really real for me, because at one moment I had a tear in my eye, and I started to think about, the readings that these readings in this book. And I realized that he's right. For most dark-skinned, Americans, white supremacy is part of our bodies. I mean, how could it not be? In the moments when I was sharing stories with them, that I think I just kind of blew off, perhaps. I didn't really talk about it. And we don't always talk about it, even in the black community. We go to church. I'll tell you that right now. We go to church and we feel really good in maybe those hour or hour and a half or couple of hours, but we're not really healed. We have a pseudo type of healing because we feel really good, and then we never talk about these type of experiences. So like And I'm talking about Black American Christians who enjoy going to church, and church is great. And then we don't really have healing spaces. So like in that moment, I felt that in front of all these white people. And so a tear started to roll down my eyes. And I realized, just like he said in this book, this toxicity is equivalent to a toxic chemical that we ingest on a daily basis. And we don't release those things. We may release it when we sing our songs, and we may release it when we go to comedy shows and we laugh, and we may release it at many times, but eventually it changes our brains and the chemistry of our bodies. So because of this, and I see you saying true, Miss Marion Hawkins. Yes. So because of this, and that's why I'm doing this, okay? Because one of the things that I never, ever want to do is bash the local church. Go to church, okay? So when you hear me talking, I am not bashing the local church. I've been in the local church since I was a little girl, but a lot of the type of healing that I'm working on now was never offered to me in churches. So that means that I have to extend the type of help and hope that God can give me. So I don't bash the church. I start doing my own work. I don't bash the church. I get on here and do things like this to help you and to say, no, you keep going to church, and don't you blame pastors, and don't you blame church leaders and all those kinds of things in faith communities, because some of them don't even know. They're not in my class. Some of them don't even know. They haven't been taught. Some of them don't even know. They don't even face their own traumas. So they don't know how to help you with yours. So when you hear people say it's okay to have Jesus and a therapist, that means you don't bash the local church. You make sure that you reach out to God and you say, God, whatever way you bless me, I'll be satisfied. And that doesn't just happen in one space. Okay? So when we think about this white body supremacy, he says that we need to begin with, not with guilt or blame, but with our bodies. So that's what I'm going to be doing, okay? Caring for your body, for the flesh part, okay? And so I'm going to be doing body work with you. So I'm going to stop here because there's so much more for me to say. And I have a lot more that I prepared, but I'm going to stop here because I'm feeling like, even in my body, it's already been a lot. So I'm going to listen to that. And I'm going to encourage you to join me on next week so that we can start doing body work, okay? I want you to consider, as I'm reading, information from a therapist and one who is about healing, I want you to consider me as your, we have personal trainers at the gym. I'm going to be your personal trainer when it comes to healing, okay? So I'm going to share with you from professionals and do with you what I try to do in my classes, okay? And remember now, if you want to learn more about Shaw University Divinity School, this is the kind of stuff, that I'm doing in my classes. So I'm going to stop here, okay? And I want you to take care of yourself and just know that we will gather again on next week. May you be well. May you focus on all aspects of who you are. And may you trust God enough to know that healing happens in various spaces and God wants you there. Be well. Have a great evening.